Hi, Susie Homesteader of the Rockies, and welcome to the Susie Homesteader channel. And today we're talking about homeschooling and one of the most important subjects on how to set up your homeschool itself. So whether you're homeschooling out of a small 10 by 10 room, which is what I'm going to show you how I did, or whether you have a 1,200 square foot cabin to homeschool out of, which is something I also did, I will help you find a way to fit everything you need into either a small space or something larger. If I was able to get all of my curriculum and school supplies in a 100 square foot room, I think you could probably do it anywhere. So if you're setting up your homeschool room in an attic or a garage or a spare bedroom or even your kitchen table, I'll try and help you show you how to get organized so that at least when you're actually in your school day, you're not spending most of your time just trying to find things. So a couple of ways you want to start out with homeschooling is hopefully just kind of having a nice big empty room, and then just filling it up with the things that you need just for your schooling. As I said, I had a 1,200 square foot cabin that I also moved my stuff into for a while, mostly just because I was having a really hard time not getting distracted at home with laundry and phone calls and everything else that goes on in a busy household. And so I took my homeschool out of the house and moved it into another location, which worked out great for me because I was not distracted, and I was able to separate my kids, which on some days seemed to be the ticket. So consequentially, I am back to just 100 square feet because I decided to do something else with my cabin. My kids like it better because they can try and escape on me a little more than they did in the other location. But it is hard for me unless the door is shut and I have everything organized every day to not go back to household duties. So if you're doing this at home, my biggest suggestion is that about 75% of your time will be going towards just being organized and disciplined and structuring your day, and the other 25% sometimes seems to be the part where they're actually learning or their education. So hopefully you can change that percentage to at least 50-50. But it is hard, it is a huge commitment, and it will probably take you a lot longer to get set up than you think. I thought it was going to take me maybe like less than 6 months to kind of get things the way I needed it. It took me closer to a year or more. So don't get discouraged if you think it's just not coming along, because it does take time, and of course it will involve a lot of patience. So let's start with just picking out some big pieces of furniture, and depending on where you get that, whether that's at a garage sale, a thrift store, of course my favorite, or maybe even an office or some kind of a business that's going out of business that you can find some of this stuff in. So I'll give you an example of that. This giant cabinet that I bought for next to nothing was from like an insurance company that was going out of business, that I was able to purchase from them, and then I did wind up repainting it and doing it for the most part. But this was kind of a key piece, because what this does is just store everything that you need to store. And there is just so much stuff that you'll accumulate and that you even have to start out with. Obviously these are packed, you know, and then I have more doors back here too that you know, just involve more and more things that you're going to use. I will tell you the easiest way to do a cabinet or even just a shelf like this is to divide it up by your subjects, so that at least part of the cabinet is just labeled for the subject that you're looking for. So for example, like this whole first top of my cabinet is all social studies. The middle part of my cabinet is grammar. The bottom part of my cabinet is math. So, you know, that covers 3 subjects just in this one little unit here. And then anything I could fit on top, which was really just DVDs, because that's as much as I could get in there on a standard 8-foot ceiling, was also utilized. So as you can see, every little speck of space I had is used. And then, you know, you can buy these little, or find these little small storage things for smaller items, which works out great. So you don't have any big boxes in here. And then of course you can still see what's in those storage units. So don't ever throw out a box or a little storage container or anything, even like a little filing section that you can possibly put something in. So lots of stuff. And then, for example, on this side I have a bunch more subjects. So, you know, like this is all science on the top. Everything I have that pertained to the science subject is on the top. And then the bottom, I think, was arts and crafts or whatever other subjects we had a lot of stuff for. And then I will tell you, when you're going into the lower grade levels, like kindergarten and first grade, you'll have a lot more manipulative materials for kids, just because so much of it is hands-on. So sometimes in the lower grades, you know, that will take up most of your cabinet space, just because that age group requires hands-on tools. And then when you start getting into the upper grades and the older kids, a lot of those start just becoming books, which on my bookshelf over here, I'll give you an example of. So, you know, again, you're still going to want things like encyclopedias and reading books and any kind of literature you can get your hands on. I actually found quite a bit of my homeschooling books at garage sales, because, you know, people do get pretty burn out on homeschooling. And there's a reason for that, and that's just because it is a huge commitment, and a lot of people just don't follow through with it. So you will be surprised how many great, even college level books you can find at garage sales, or any kind of like thrift store and stuff. So don't go spend a fortune on books, because these are easy to find. I'm sure you even have like a used bookstore in your neighborhood. And it's just endless how much literature there is. This was actually a different shelf that I built for something else. I turned into a bookshelf for this little room, but the key on this one was that I built this pull-out desk on this. And in such a small room like this, which is kind of what we're talking about, this is just a good option, because now I have another workspace if I need it, and if I don't, then I can just put it back up. So if you are going to be building anything on your own, actually, you know, making furniture for your room, consider doing something like that, where you can actually put it back up if it's not in use, which really works out great if you have all your kids in the same room. So there's an example of having one little work area for kids. And then of course I have as many desks as I could fit in a little 10 by 10 room as well. So I was only able to get two, well, they are kind of giant desks, but I was only able to get 2 desks in my, as I said, 10 by 10 room. But I got one here, and then I have one over on this other side too. And that's as good as it got. So besides the big cabinet that we just talked about, you know, or you can find some kind of shelving that's similar to that, but it is kind of nice to have doors just to hide everything. You're definitely going to need desks, or as many desks as you can fit in your room, depending on how many kids are actually going to be in there. And then you're absolutely going to need some file cabinets. And the taller you can go on that, obviously the more space you're going to have too. So I really don't suggest buying a bunch of the short file cabinets, because you're going to run out of room fast. You know, this is a more expensive file cabinet, but again, I bought that from a business that was going, or a company that was going out of business. So that's about $1,000 file cabinet that I got for like $100. So it can be done. You know, look around at secondhand stores and stuff in your area. But that's a big space saver. So file cabinets you're going to have. Desks are nice to have. Big cabinets are kind of a must, with some kind of shelving or doors. And then a bookshelf is going to become kind of crucial too. So, you know, and then if you can't go out, go up, which is what I always say. This is just an example of putting shelving over windows, which I also built. And then this particular shelf is designated just for my actual curriculum. So you can divide your room up by subjects. You can divide it up by your actual books that are specifically just for your curriculum. I also have books for myself, kind of how-to books on homeschooling, which you might want to think about buying and reading before you even get started on the whole process. Those helped out a lot. And then you'll also be, like I said, using a lot of DVDs and even the old VHS movies for educational materials. So get your hands on anything you can get your hands on that has to do with education, and you'll be surprised how much stuff you'll actually use. Even if you didn't think you were going to use it, you'll wind up using it. Modern technology, computers, printers, routers. I personally thought that was super important stuff. I had some of the higher end version of that for myself that I also have my older kids on, but I did keep some of my older like XP programs, the older style desktops for my younger kids, because they are easier for the younger kids to actually use. So don't throw out that old desktop you had, because that does work well for the lower grades. If you have laptops, anything else on hand to help the kids get on the internet, which to me was a really important tool to kind of further them into the future. Try and get a hold of that stuff too. And this is another example of something I just bought from an insurance company that went out of business. They had a bunch of old desktops and they wanted to upgrade to better computers, and so I took a couple of the old ones. So don't discount those either, because again, they are useful. So lots of things that you're going to need for your office, but just start with the basics and try and give yourself as much space as you can to keep adding to everything you need. I have almost six grade levels in here now, but I chose not to put my kids through homeschool for the high school years, so I kind of stopped at about 9th grade, so that kind of helped with 4 more levels of materials that I had to put in this little tiny room. But you will have to base your room on how many grade levels you're planning on teaching and how many kids you're planning on teaching at the same time. So if you flat out ran out of space in that one area, then you may be out at the kitchen table or the dining room table studying or trying to separate kids, or having group projects out there too. So you may not get it all in one room. And then of course the room is also going to be determined on what kind of curriculum you're going to teach. So for example, if you're going to use religion in your curriculum, then you're going to need even more space, which I chose not to do just because I didn't think there was enough time in the day to get that much information in. So what I decided to do was just keep this room in particular strictly for education. And if I did decide to incorporate religion into any of my education, that was done completely separately. Something else you want to think about too in terms of organizing your room is getting places that are easy access for your kids to get to. It helps them become a little bit more independent learner when they can go and get their own materials. Versus you handing them their materials every day, and for some reason they just don't fight you as bad on the whole thing, because they're actually going to get their own books and materials and going someplace to learn on their own. So the whole idea with homeschooling is creating that independent learner, and a couple tricks to that is having things that are accessible to them. So for example, if you have smaller, younger kids, put their books down on the bottom so they don't have to have somebody go get their books for them. Or just so that they even have a chance to just rifle through some books that they may want to read in their free time. So little tricks like that, where you're going to put certain items for certain levels, maybe say, the younger kids at a lower level in the room so that they can get them without somebody's help. And then maybe just for the older kids and the taller kids, you would put things up a little higher. And then they just can access things on their own without you, as long as they know what their setup is for the day. So that also applies to the cabinets too. If you want to start making things that are accessible for them to get on their own, especially the little kids, put all that fun stuff down on the bottom, and they can just grab that stuff and start working on it, you know, even without you. So a lot of the younger kids and the lower levels I like to keep on the bottom and just about as organized as you can get so that they can gather that stuff on their own. And that really seems to be the ticket, because that kind of creates an environment where they're not completely dependent on you to get them things that may be changing over the day, and then they're good to go without you. There's lots of different ways to kind of divide up your subjects by that room, and divide up your grade levels, and then divide up your curriculums. So lots to think about when you're setting up your room. The easiest way for me to do it was kind of to divide everything by subjects first. And then of course I used the eight subjects, which were math, reading, science, social studies, health, PE, and music. I think I forgot one, but anyway, 8 basic subjects that I chose to teach, and then my curriculum was all based on those 8 subjects, and then those 8 subjects were also multiplied by the grade levels. It will take you quite a while to accumulate all your materials. A lot of mine, as I said, I got at garage sales and even thrift stores, and then I did wind up purchasing some stuff online on the internet, which really worked out good, except for the fact that it was a lot more expensive than I could have imagined. But in my case, because I did choose to get my kids at least up to the high school level, and then put them into a public high school, I had to kind of stay on track with where they were going to be at by the time they hit 9th grade. So a lot of my curriculum was determined partially on the public school system, and then where I wanted them to be by the time they went to high school. So lots of things, again, to think about. You know, if you're going to homeschool them all the way through high school, then a lot of that you don't have to worry about in terms of what kind of curriculum you're going to pick. But I did have to choose some of my curriculum that was still in line with the public school system, even though I chose to homeschool. So, you know, so many things to consider when setting up your room, because a lot of those decisions you make will determine on how much stuff you have to acquire. So hopefully that gave you a kind of a quick little overview of just how to get set up and not get overwhelmed in the beginning. Can't tell you how many days I thought about not doing it or had to hold back the tears because it was a way bigger commitment than I thought. But don't give up, and I'll have a whole bunch of other videos for you on homeschooling, and some of those will include just how to schedule your day to stay organized on a daily basis, and how much time you're actually going to invest in this per week. Some of it will talk about some of the rules and regulations that you have per state for homeschooling, and different curriculums that I liked and didn't like. I'll give you a great list of places to purchase a lot of these resources that I was happy with, and just a mile-long list of materials that you're going to need no matter what you decide to do. So lots of resources for you, lots of information. I'll give you everything I can give you on all my experience in homeschooling as far as I went. So hopefully that helped you out a little bit, and if you have any questions, come see me at Susie Homestead of the Rockies, and I'll answer any questions you have. So we'll see you there. Bye-bye. Let's get started. Subscribe to the Susie Homesteader channel, and we'll see you there. Bye-bye.